With violet, purple, and scarlet yarn were woven the service cloths for use in the sanctuary, as well as the sacred vestments. For Aaron, as the Lord had commanded Moses, the ephod was woven of gold thread and of violet, purple, and scarlet yarn, and of fine linen twined. Gold was first hammered into gold leaf and then cut up into threads, which were woven in the violet, purple, and scarlet yarn into an embroidered pattern on the fine linen. Shoulder straps were made for it and joined to its two upper ends. The embroidered belt on the ephod extended out from it, and like it was made of gold, of violet, purple, and scarlet yarn, and of fine linen twine, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The onyx stones were prepared and mounted in gold filigree work. They were engraved like seal engravings with the names of the sons of Israel. These stones were set on the shoulder straps of the ephod as memorial stones of the sons of Israel, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. The breastpiece was embroidered like ephod, with gold thread and violet and purple and scarlet yarn on cloth of fine linen twine. It was square and folded double, a span high and a span wide in its folded form. 4 rows of precious stones were mounted on it. In the first row, a carnelian, a topaz, and an emerald. In the second row, a garnet, a sapphire, and a beryl. In the third row, a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. In the fourth row, a chrysolite, an onyx, and a jasper. They were mounted in gold filigree work. These stones were 12 to match the names of the sons of Israel, and each stone was engraved like a seal with the name of one of the 12 tribes. Chains of pure gold, twisted like cords, were made of the breastpiece, together with 2 gold filigree rosettes and 2 gold rings. The 2 rings were fastened to the 2 upper ends of the breastpiece. The 2 gold chains were then fastened to the 2 rings at the ends of the breastpiece. The 2 other 2 ends of the chains were fastened in front of the 2 filigree rosettes, which were attached to the shoulder straps of the ephod. 2 other gold rings were made and put on 2 lower ends of the breastpiece of the edge facing the ephod. 2 more gold rings were made and fastened to the bottom of 2 shoulder straps next to where they joined the ephod in front. Just above its embroidered belt, violet ribbons bound the rings of the breastpiece to the rings of the ephod, so that the breastpiece stayed right above the embroidered belt of the ephod and did not swing loose from it. All this was just as the Lord had commanded Moses. The robe of the ephod was woven entirely of violet yarn, with an opening in its center, like the opening of a shirt, with sleevage around the opening to keep it from being torn at the hem of the robe. Pomegranates were made of violet, purple, and scarlet yarn of fine linen twined. Bells of pure gold were also made and put between the pomegranates, all around the hem of the robe. A bell, a pomegranate, a bell, a pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe, which was to be worn in performing the ministry. All this just as the Lord had commanded Moses. For Aaron and his sons there were also woven tunics of fine linen, the turban of the fine linen, the ornate skull caps of fine linen, pants of fine linen twine, and sashes of variegated work made of fine linen twine and of violet, purple, and scarlet yarn, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The plate of the sacred diadem was made of pure gold, inscribed as on a seal engraving, sacred to the Lord. It was tied over the turban with a violet ribbon, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Thus the entire work of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting was completed. The Israelites did the work just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so it was done. They then brought to Moses the tabernacle, the tent with all its furnishings, the clasps, the frames, the bars, the columns, the pedestals, the covering of ram skins dyed red, the covering of Tahash skins, the curved veil, the Ark of the Covenant with its poles, the cover, the table with all its utensils, and the showbread, the pure gold menorah with its lamps set up on it with all its utensils, the oil for the light, the golden altar, the anointing oil, the fragrant incense, the curtain for the entrance of the tent, the altar of bronze with its bronze grating, its poles and all its utensils, the basin with its stand, the hangings of the court with their columns and pedestals, the curtain for the gate of the court with its ropes and tent pegs, all the equipment for the service of the tabernacle to the tent of meeting, the service cloths for use in the sanctuary, the sacred vestments for Aaron the priest, and the vestments to be worn by his sons in their ministry, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So the Israelites had carried out all the work. So when Moses saw that all the work was done just as the Lord had commanded, he blessed them. Then the Lord said to Moses, on the first day of the first month, you shall set up the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. Put the ark of the covenant in it, and screen off the ark with the veil. Bring in the table and set it. Then bring in the menorah and set up the lamps on it. Put the golden altar of incense in the front of the ark of the covenant, and hang the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle. Put the altar for burnt offering in front of the entrance of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. Place the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it. Set up the court round about and put the curtain at the gate of the court. Take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and everything in it, consecrating it and all its furnishings, so that it will be sacred. Anoint the altar for burnt offering and all its utensils, consecrating it so that it will be most sacred. Likewise, anoint the basin with its stand, and thus consecrate it. Then bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and there wash them with water. Clothe Aaron with the sacred vestments and anoint him, thus consecrating him as my priest. Bring forward his sons also, and clothe them with the tunics, as you have anointed their father. Anoint them also as my priests. Thus by being anointed shall they receive a perpetual priesthood throughout all generations. Moses did as the Lord had commanded him. On the first day of the first month of the second year, the tabernacle was set up. It was Moses who set up the tabernacle. He placed its pedestals, set up its frames, put in its bars, and set up its columns. He spread the tent over the tabernacle and put the covering on top of the tent as the Lord had commanded him. He took the covenant and put it in the ark. He placed poles alongside the ark and set the cover upon it. He brought the ark into the tabernacle and hung the curtain veil, thus screening off the ark of the covenant, as the Lord had commanded him. He put the table and the tent of meeting on the north side of the tabernacle outside the veil, and arranged the bread on it before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded him. He placed the menorah in the tent of meeting opposite the table on the south side of the tabernacle, and he set up the lamps before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded him. He placed the golden altar in the tent of meeting in front of the veil, and on it he burned fragrant incense, as the Lord had commanded him. He hung the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle. He put the altar for burnt offering in front of the entrance of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting, and sacrificed burnt offerings and grain offerings on it, as the Lord had commanded him. He placed the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar, and put water in it for washing. Moses and Aaron and his sons used to wash their hands and feet, for they washed themselves whenever they went into the tent of meeting or approached the altar, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Finally, he set up the court around the tabernacle and the altar, and hung the curtain at the gate of the court. Thus Moses finished all the work. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud settled upon it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Whenever the cloud rose from the tabernacle, the Israelites would set out on their journey. But if the cloud did not lift, they would not go forward. Only when it lifted did they go forward. The cloud of the Lord was over the tabernacle by day, and the fire in the cloud at night, in the sight of the whole house of Israel in all the stages of their journey. This is the word of the Lord.